the reading of the will, my son-in-law leaned toward my daughter and whispered, "She'll never live long enough to spend it all. We should secure those millions now." The room filled with polite laughter. But on Monday, a single letter from my lawyer wiped the smiles off their faces. "Hey there, I'm so glad you're here. Follow my story to the end and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. It always amazes me how far these stories travel. I'm Thelma, 72 years old, and that day completely changed the way I saw my own family. The will reading was supposed to bring closure. After 47 years of marriage, losing Harold to illness felt like losing half of myself. I sat quietly in the attorney's wood-paneled office, clutching a handkerchief, barely hearing the formal words being read aloud. Everything had gone just as we'd planned. The house in Westfield, our savings, Harold's pension, all left to me. And then I heard it. Robert, my son-in-law, whispering to my daughter Christine, his tone soft but sharp enough for my old ears to catch every word. "She'll never spend it all. We should take care of the money now." Then that laugh, his and hers. My own daughter. I froze, hand halfway to my face. They didn't notice. They rarely looked at me these days unless they needed something. To them, I wasn't a person anymore, just a number written on paper, the future inheritance they thought they deserved. "Mom, are you all right?" Christine finally asked when we left the office. "Just tired, dear," I said, my voice calm though my heart was breaking. "You shouldn't be alone in that big house," Robert added quickly. "Come stay with us for a few days." Behind his concerned expression, I caught the flicker of calculation. How had I missed it before? "I'll be fine," I said. "Martha's coming by later." His smile tightened. He'd never liked Martha, probably because she saw through him from the start. That night I couldn't sleep. Memories flooded back, their sudden visits after Harold's retirement, their constant questions about the house. "So much work for you, Mom," they'd say. Or about my investments. "Are you sure your advisor knows what he's doing?" I remembered last Christmas, catching Robert admiring my jewelry, just appreciating the design, he'd claimed while holding my anniversary bracelet. All those years I'd helped them. The house down payment, the grandkids' college funds, even a loan for Robert's business. I never asked for anything back. That's what family does. Or so I believed. But that night, one thought wouldn't leave me. Did they ever truly love me? Or only what I could give them? At 3 a.m., I made my decision. When morning came, I called my lawyer. "George, I need to make some changes," I said, "and I need your full discretion." He'd worked with our family for decades. I trusted him. Harold had too. I told him everything I'd overheard. My voice broke once. "I'm sorry, Thelma," he said softly, "but I've seen this before. Let's protect what's rightfully yours." We met that afternoon. For 3 hours we went over every detail. When I finally left his office, I felt strangely lighter. The pain was still there, but so was strength. "I'll have the documents ready Monday," George promised, "and once you sign, I'll deliver the notification letter." That weekend dragged on forever. Christine called twice, Robert once, their voices filled with forced concern and quiet curiosity about my finances. I kept my answers vague, just as they always had when I asked about their own money troubles. By Monday morning, George arrived with the papers. His assistant watched as I signed each page. "Are you absolutely sure, Thelma?" he asked one last time. I thought of Harold, of everything we'd built, and of the words I'd overheard. "Yes," I said firmly, signing the final page. That afternoon, George delivered the letter. By evening, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. I let it go to voicemail. For the first time since Harold passed, I slept through the night. Tomorrow would bring their outrage, their disbelief, their attempts to change my mind. But tonight, I was calm. Betrayal had broken my heart, but it also opened my eyes. The next morning, Christine arrived unannounced, still in her work uniform, eyes red from crying. "Mom, what did you do?" she demanded, waving the letter. I stepped aside and quietly said, Come in, dear. We need to talk. Would you like some coffee? I asked softly. I just made a fresh pot. Coffee? Christine's voice cracked. Are you serious right now? You've just... She couldn't even finish her sentence. She sank onto the sofa and buried her face in her hands. I sat across from her, calm, hands folded in my lap. I've just protected what your father and I worked for our entire lives. The letter had made everything clear. The family house would be sold, not passed down as they had assumed. Most of the money would be placed in a trust with detailed conditions, and a large portion had already been pledged to the cancer research center that cared for Harold. How could you do this to us? Christine's voice was smaller now, trembling. We were counting on that inheritance. That, I said quietly, is exactly the problem. You were counting on my death. She flinched as if struck. That's not what we meant. Robert was just... Don't, I said firmly, raising my hand. Please don't insult me with lies. The room fell silent except for the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, each second stretched like an accusation. What about the kids? She finally asked, her voice breaking. You're punishing your own grandchildren. That question had kept me awake the night before. Their college funds remain untouched, I said. In fact, I've increased them, but the trust will manage them, not you and Robert. Her eyes hardened. You don't trust us. Should I? I asked simply. She didn't answer. After she left, I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. Rain traced soft lines across the glass. I expected guilt or doubt to creep in, but instead there was peace, clarity. That afternoon, I drove to pick up my grandson Jason from high school, just like every Tuesday. At 17, he was the image of Harold, same gentle eyes, same quiet strength. Hey, Grandma, he said, hopping into the passenger seat. Then he noticed my expression. What's wrong? Did Mom call you? He checked his phone. 3 missed calls. I was in a test, he said quickly. What happened? I pulled into the parking lot of the little ice cream shop we always visited. Turning off the engine, I looked at him carefully. I need to tell you something, I began, and I want you to hear it from me first. I explained the situation in simple terms, leaving out the harshest details. Jason listened in silence, his brow furrowed. I'm not surprised, he said finally. You're not? He shook his head. Dad's been talking about your money for years. Last month he was showing Mom some vacation home ads in Florida, said they'd buy one when the time comes. I thought it was wrong. My heart sank. I'm sorry you had to hear that, I whispered. I'm sorry they said it, he replied, suddenly sounding much older. What are you going to do now, Grandma? Live, I said with a faint smile. And make sure what your grandpa built goes where it truly matters. Over ice cream, he told me about his college applications and his dream of studying engineering. We didn't mention the trust again, but when he hugged me goodbye, he whispered, I'm on your side, Grandma. Always. At least I hadn't lost everyone. That evening, the phone rang again. This time, it was Robert. He didn't bother pretending to be kind. We'll contest this, Thelma, he snapped. No court will honor changes made so soon after Harold's passing. You weren't thinking clearly. My doctor and therapist would disagree, I replied calmly. George made sure everything was legally sound. This isn't over, he said through clenched teeth, then hung up. The next few days I began piecing together the truth about their finances. It didn't take long. The signs had been there. I just hadn't wanted to see them. The so-called business loan Robert had requested last year, public records showed it had paid off a lien on their house. They were one step from losing it. The credit card statements I'd once helped Christine sort through, now they told a different story. Designer clothes, fine dining, a trip to Bali. They were living on dreams and debt, comforted by the idea that my money would someday rescue them. The worst discovery came from the grandchildren's college funds. The balances were far lower than they should have been. Someone had been making quiet withdrawals, small enough to avoid attention, but large enough to matter. Only Christine had access besides me. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by statements and truths I didn't want to face. This wasn't just about one cruel comment whispered at a will reading. It was about years of deceit and entitlement. Harold would have been devastated. The thought of his disappointment brought tears I could no longer hold back. My phone buzzed. A message from Martha. "Lunch tomorrow. You need to get out of that house." I smiled weakly. Martha had been calling every day. Unlike my own family, her care came from the heart. "Yes," I texted back. "There's a lot to tell you." Then I gathered all the financial papers into a folder for George. Whatever came next, I would be ready. Later that night, I was brushing my hair, preparing for bed, when the doorbell rang. I froze, glancing at the clock. 10 p.m. Far too late for a casual visit. When I peeked through the curtains, I saw my granddaughter, Emma, standing on the porch. She was hugging herself against the evening chill, a small overnight bag resting at her feet. I opened the door right away. "Emma, sweetheart, what's wrong?" Her eyes were red and tired. "Can I stay here tonight, Grandma? Mom and Dad won't stop fighting." "About money." Her voice trembled. "About you." I pulled her into my arms, feeling her shoulders shake. "Of course you can stay," I whispered, "as long as you need." As I prepared the guest room, one truth settled deep inside me. The real cost of Robert and Christine's greed was higher than I'd ever imagined. It wasn't just my trust they'd broken. They were hurting their own children, poisoning their home with bitterness and obsession over money that wasn't even theirs yet. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, I made myself a quiet promise. No matter what came next, I would not back down. Breakfast the next morning was peaceful, almost healing. Emma helped me make blueberry pancakes, Harold's favorite. For a few precious minutes, the kitchen felt alive again. "Do you have to go back home after school today?" I asked, watching her carefully cut her pancakes into neat little squares, just as she had when she was small. "Mom said to come straight home," she murmured, not meeting my eyes. "She said they need to talk to me about family matters." The way she said it made my heart ache. At 15, Emma was caught in the middle of a battle she never started. "You're always welcome here," I said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "No matter what happens." After dropping her at school, I went straight to George's office. He looked tired, deep lines etched around his eyes. "Robert's lawyer called yesterday," he said, motioning for me to sit. "They're suggesting you acted under emotional strain when you made the changes to your will." I set the folder of documents on his desk. "I expected that," I replied. "That's why I brought proof." George flipped through the pages carefully, the mysterious withdrawals from the grandchildren's funds, the foreclosure notice that matched the timing of their so-called business loan, the extravagant purchases and luxury trips. "This strengthens our position considerably," he said finally. Then he looked up, his expression serious. "But Thelma, are you ready for how messy this could get? Family disputes like this can leave scars that never fully heal." I thought of Robert's whisper at the will reading, Christine's tearful visit that was never about love or grief, only loss of money. "The relationships were already broken," I said quietly. "I just didn't see it until now." When I returned home, Martha was waiting on my porch, holding a casserole and wearing her usual look of determination. "You missed lunch?" she said, following me inside. "So I brought lunch to you." Over warm chicken pot pie, I told her everything. The overheard words, the financial discoveries, Emma showing up at my door. Martha listened in stunned silence, her fork frozen midair. "I always thought Robert was arrogant," she said finally. "But this is beyond that." I laughed softly. Martha never sugarcoated anything. "So what's next?" she asked. "I've handled the legal part," I said. "But now I need to draw real boundaries. No more surprise loans, no more rescuing them from their mistakes." Martha nodded. "And the house? You mentioned selling it in that letter." The question hit hard. The house had been our home for 43 years. Every corner held a memory of Harold. His chair by the window, the crooked shelf he put up in the pantry, the garden he cared for like it was family. I can't stay here, I admitted softly. It's too big, and now it feels tainted by their expectations, Martha finished for me. Exactly. We spent the afternoon searching for smaller homes nearby, close enough to see the grandchildren, but far enough from Christine and Robert to finally breathe. By evening, I had 3 realtors scheduled to evaluate my house and 2 viewings set for potential new homes. The next morning, as I was heading out for the first appointment, Christine and Robert pulled up unannounced. "We need to talk about this like adults," Christine said sharply, trying to push her way inside. "I have an appointment," I said firmly, stepping outside and closing the door behind me. "We can talk later, if you call first." Robert stepped forward, using his height to loom over me. "You're selling the family home now? Do you even realize what you're doing to Christine? To our family?" I met his eyes steadily. "Yes, I do. I'm protecting what Harold and I built from people who see me as nothing more than a wallet with an expiration date." Christine gasped. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I turned to her. "When was the last time you visited just to see me? Not to borrow money, not to ask for help, just to spend time together?" She said nothing. "And you," I said, looking directly at Robert, "you've been planning how to spend my money while I'm still alive. Don't deny it. Jason heard you, talking about vacation homes for when the time comes." The color drained from his face. "He's just a kid. He misunderstood." "No, he didn't," I said calmly. "Now please move." "My realtor is waiting," I said simply, stepping past them. As I walked toward my car, Christine's voice cracked behind me. "Mom, please, we can work this out." I turned, meeting her desperate gaze. "I'm not cutting you off completely," I said evenly. "The trust will still cover the grandchildren's education. And once you and Robert repay what you took from their college funds, you'll receive modest yearly distributions." Their stunned faces told me everything. They never expected to be held accountable. The meeting with my realtor went smoothly. She suggested a few small updates to boost the sale value, but said the house would likely sell fast in the current market. As she walked through each room, taking photos and notes, I felt a strange blend of sadness and freedom, as if I were finally stepping out of a long shadow. That evening, Jason called. "Mom said you're selling the house," he said carefully. "Are you really okay with that?" "It's time for a change," I told him. "Something smaller, easier to care for." "I'll miss that place," he admitted softly, "but I get it. Where are you thinking of moving?" I told him about the 2 places I was planning to see. "The one on Maple Street is close to my college," he said. "If I get in." "When you get in," I corrected with a smile. I noticed that too. We talked for nearly an hour, about his college dreams, about Emma, and eventually about his parents. "They're worried," he confessed. "Really worried about money. I heard Dad mention refinancing the house again." It didn't surprise me. "Jason," I said gently, "whatever happens between your parents and me, it won't change anything between us. Your education, Emma's future, they're secure." "I'm not worried about the money, Grandma," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I just don't want to lose you." After we hung up, I sat in Harold's old chair by the window, watching the sun fade over the garden. The weight of the week pressed heavy on me, but beneath it was a quiet certainty. I was doing the right thing, not just for myself, but for Jason and Emma. They needed to see that love doesn't mean blind forgiveness, and that even family must face consequences when they cross certain lines. Tomorrow, I would view new homes. I'd meet George to finalize the trust. I'd begin a new chapter, one that Harold would have been proud of. He always said we raised Christine to stand on her own 2 feet. Maybe now she finally would. 2 weeks passed quickly. The house was listed. I found a beautiful garden apartment in a quiet, senior-friendly community near Jason's future college. The trust papers were signed. Christine's calls came daily, some tearful, some angry, but I stayed steady. Until one call changed everything. It was from Dr. Klein, my physician of over 10 years. "Mrs. Wilson," he began gently, "your daughter contacted me. She's concerned about some recent behavior. Mentioned quick decision-making, possible memory problems. I tightened my grip on the phone. I assume she also mentioned that I've updated my will and am selling my house? There was a short pause. She did say you've been making some major financial decisions, he admitted carefully. I see. My tone remained calm, though my pulse quickened. Would you like me to come in for an evaluation? If you don't mind, he said, just as a precaution. I'll be there tomorrow morning, I said firmly. As soon as I hung up, I called George. They're setting up the groundwork to challenge your mental competency, he said grimly. It's a classic tactic. They want to make it look like you weren't of sound mind when you made those changes. What should I do? See Dr. Klein, he replied. Be open. Take every test he offers. I'll also schedule an independent evaluation from a specialist not connected to your family. That way, you'll have undeniable proof. The message was clear. Christine and Robert weren't just upset anymore, they were launching an attack. The next morning, Dr. Klein ran a full cognitive assessment. I answered every question with precision, completed every task with ease. Finally, he set down his clipboard. Mrs. Wilson, he said, smiling faintly, I see no signs of cognitive decline whatsoever. Your memory and reasoning are excellent for any age. Please note that in my file, I said. Already done, he replied. Then his expression softened. I've known your family for years. I hope this can be resolved peacefully. So do I said quietly, though I no longer believed it would. When I got home, Christine's car was already in my driveway. I found her inside, in the living room, rifling through Harold's desk. What are you doing? I demanded. She jumped, nearly dropping the stack of papers in her hand. Mom, I was just looking for Dad's old watch. Jason's graduation is coming up and... The lie was so thin it didn't deserve acknowledgement. Put everything back, I said sharply, and leave. Don't be like this, she pleaded. I was just looking for financial documents, I cut in. Something to prove your claim that I'm losing my mind. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Christine's face flushed deep red. Dr. Klein called you? Of course he did, I said evenly. I'm his patient, not you. I walked to the door and held it open. We have nothing more to discuss today. She hesitated, her eyes darting toward the desk. But I didn't move. Finally, she brushed past me and left without another word. After she was gone, I checked the drawers. Several folders had been moved, including the one with my recent bank statements. I'd have to start being more careful about what I left within reach. That evening, the phone rang again. Robert. Thelma. He began smoothly. We need to talk about what's best for you moving forward. I'm listening, I said, curious to hear his next performance. Christine and I have been researching assisted living options. There's a wonderful community in Maplewood luxury apartments, full services. I'm not moving to assisted living, Robert. It's not what you think, he rushed. They're modern, independent units with staff available only if you need them. Then why would I need them? He sighed the way people do when they're explaining something to a child. You've been through a lot, Thelma. Losing Harold, living alone for the first time in decades. It's clouding your judgment. My judgment, I said coolly, is perfectly sound, as Dr. Klein confirmed today. There was a pause. He shouldn't have discussed that with you. I told you, I repeated. I'm his patient, not you. We're just worried about you, Robert insisted. The sudden decisions, the will changes. They're not like you. Perhaps, I said quietly, you never really knew me. Or perhaps I've changed since learning what you and Christine truly think of me. I hung up before he could reply. Then I called Martha. Can you come over? Already grabbing my coat, she said. While I waited, I walked through every room, photographing how things were arranged, proof, in case they snooped again. Martha arrived half an hour later with a bottle of wine and her trademark bluntness. They're trying to have you declared incompetent, aren't they? I nodded, pouring us each a glass. They even suggested assisted living today. Unbelievable, she muttered, raising her glass, to outsmarting the vultures. We spent the evening planning. Martha would accompany me to all home viewings and realtor meetings as a witness to my clarity. I'd install a security system with cameras, and most importantly, I would document every single interaction with Christine and Robert. "They're underestimating you," Martha said as she left. "That'll be their biggest mistake." The next morning brought a new twist. Robert's mother, Eleanor, called for the first time since Harold's funeral. "Thelma, dear," she began in her syrupy tone, "I've been hearing some worrying things. Christine says you've been acting oddly." "Did she mention why I made these changes?" I asked calmly. "Something about a misunderstanding at the will reading," she replied lightly. "It wasn't a misunderstanding," I said. "I clearly heard Robert say I'd never live long enough to spend the money, and that they should secure the millions now." Everyone laughed. There was silence on the line. "Well," she said at last, "grief can make us mishear things." "I hear things perfectly well," I replied, "including who cares about me and who only cares about what I can provide." After I hung up, it didn't surprise me when Christine texted a few minutes later, "Even Grandma Eleanor is worried about you now. Please reconsider before this goes too far." Their little campaign was escalating. That night, I sat at my desk and documented every call, every message, every attempt to undermine me. Then I emailed everything to George. His reply came within minutes. "They're building a case. We need to act now." The following Monday, I met with the geriatric psychiatrist George recommended. Dr. Sharma was warm but thorough, a 3-hour evaluation covering memory, reasoning, decision-making. When we finished, she smiled. "Mrs. Wilson, you're sharper than most of my colleagues." Her detailed report confirmed it. My mind was clear, my choices sound. I left her office feeling secure, but I had underestimated just how far Christine and Robert would go. When I returned home, their car was in the driveway again, and this time, they weren't alone. A man in a gray suit stood beside them, holding a clipboard. "Mrs. Wilson?" he asked politely. "I'm with Adult Protective Services. We've received a report of potential financial exploitation. Your daughter and son-in-law are concerned someone may be influencing your decisions." The irony nearly made me laugh. "The only people attempting to influence me," I said, "are standing right next to you." For the next hour, I calmly laid everything out, my documentation, the medical evaluations, the trust details, and proof of their financial misuse. By the time the social worker finished reviewing it all, his expression had softened. "This appears to be a family dispute, not an exploitation case," he concluded. "I'm sorry for the intrusion, ma'am." Christine's face burned with fury. "You're tearing this family apart!" she shouted. "No," I said quietly, meeting her eyes. "Greed is tearing this family apart. Your greed." They stormed out without another word. I stood in the silence that followed, heart pounding but steady. They had crossed the line. It was time to move faster, time to show them what happens when they push too far. I picked up the phone and called George from my newly secured landline. My voice was calm but firm. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's take the next step." The day of reckoning came sooner than I expected. 3 offers arrived for the house, all above asking price. I accepted the highest one, a young family with 2 little children who fell in love with Harold's garden the moment they saw it. They would bring life and laughter back to these old walls. That same afternoon, George called. "The trust paperwork is complete," he said. "Everything's ready for signatures." Everything was finally falling into place, faster than Christine and Robert could react. "I think it's time," I told him. "Let's schedule the family meeting," he agreed. "Your new apartment will be ready next week. The timing works perfectly." That evening, I sent a formal email to Christine and Robert and copied Jason and Emma for full transparency. Family meeting this Saturday, 2 p.m. at my house. Attendance required. George will be present. Robert replied almost immediately. "We have plans this weekend." "Cancel them," I typed back. Christine called a few minutes later, her voice tight. "What's this about, Mom?" "Everything," I said calmly. "It's time we put all our cards on the table." Saturday arrived bright and warm, one of those perfect spring days Harold would have spent trimming roses or planting herbs. I made a light lunch, sandwiches, fruit, and tea. Nothing fancy. This wasn't a social gathering. George arrived first, his leather portfolio tucked under his arm, his smile reassuring. "Ready?" he asked. "I've never been more ready," I said. Jason and Emma came next, both looking uneasy. I hugged them tightly. "No matter what happens today," I whispered, "remember, I love you both." Christine and Robert showed up last, exactly at 2 p.m. Robert's polite mask was firmly in place. Christine looked pale but composed. "Thank you all for coming," I began once everyone was seated in the living room. "I've called this meeting because it's time we address everything that's happened since Harold's passing." Robert shifted in his chair. "If this is about the changes to your will—" "It's about much more than that," I cut in. "It's about respect, honesty, and consequences." I nodded to George. He opened his portfolio and handed out folders. Christine frowned, flipping through the pages. "What is this?" "Evidence," I said evenly. "Of financial misconduct, of attempts to question my mental capacity, and of your plans to access my assets before my time." Emma gasped softly, looking at her parents in disbelief. "That's ridiculous," Robert protested. "We've only ever cared about your well-being." "Really?" I reached for my phone and tapped play. Robert's voice filled the room, clear, cruel, and unmistakable. "She'll die before she spends it all. Better secure those millions now." Then came laughter, his and Christine's. Color drained from their faces. "You recorded us?" Christine whispered. "I didn't have to," I replied. This was from George's assistant. The will reading was documented for legal purposes. George nodded. "The recording is admissible, should this ever reach court." My voice was steady, even as my heart pounded. "On page 3, you'll find bank statements showing withdrawals from Jason and Emma's college funds, $42,000 in total, all made by you, Christine, over the past 2 years. Jason's head snapped toward his mother. "You took money from our college accounts?" Christine couldn't meet his eyes. "It was temporary," she stammered. "We were going to replace it. With my inheritance," I finished for her. "Except now, there won't be a lump sum inheritance for you to access." Robert leaned forward, his tone sharp. "You can't do this to us. We're your family." "Family," I said softly, "doesn't try to have each other declared incompetent for personal gain. Family doesn't call doctors and social workers to fabricate concerns, and family doesn't plan someone's death to fix their money problems." Emma began to cry quietly, her small shoulders shaking. I softened my voice. "Everything Harold and I built will still benefit this family, but safely. Jason and Emma's education is fully protected through the trust. You and Robert will still receive annual distributions, as long as certain conditions are met." Robert's jaw tightened. "What conditions?" George answered for me. "Financial counseling, repayment of the misused college funds, and, most importantly, respect for Mrs. Wilson's independence and decisions." "This is blackmail!" Christine snapped. "No," I said firmly. "This is a boundary, something I should have set years ago." I rose to my feet, signaling the end of discussion. "The house has been sold. I move into Cedar Ridge Apartments next week. The proceeds will go into the trust, except for what I'll need to live comfortably, which, despite Robert's expectations, might be for quite a while yet." Robert's mouth opened, but Christine touched his arm, realizing at last that they'd lost. "What happens now?" Jason asked quietly. "That depends on your parents," I said honestly. "I'm open to rebuilding this family, but only on terms of respect." Christine stood abruptly, her face unreadable. "We need time to process this." I nodded once. "Take all the time you need." As they left, the late afternoon sunlight spilled through the window, warm and golden across Harold's empty chair. For the first time in months, the house felt peaceful again, not because everything was fixed, but because I'd finally stopped letting guilt and fear make my choices. This wasn't revenge. It was reclaiming the life Harold and I built, one decision at a time. Take all the time you need, I said evenly. But understand, the trust terms are not negotiable. After they left, Jason and Emma remained, both pale and shaken by everything they'd just heard. Did you know? Emma whispered to her brother, still wiping tears. Jason shook his head. Not all of it. Not about the college funds. I sat between them on the couch and took their hands. I'm sorry you had to hear all that, I said softly. I wanted to protect you, but you're old enough now to know the truth. Are Mom and Dad going to be okay? Emma asked in a small voice. Financially? Yes, if they start making better choices, I said with a sigh. As for the rest, that's up to them. Jason gave my hand a gentle squeeze. I'm proud of you, Grandma, he said, for standing up for yourself. His words caught me off guard, bringing tears I hadn't expected. In all these weeks of tension and accusations, no one had said they were proud of me until now. After the grandchildren left, George and I sat together in the quiet living room reviewing the day. They'll calm down eventually, he predicted, once they realize the trust actually protects them in the long run. Maybe, I said, though I wasn't convinced. But that's not why I did it. He smiled kindly. I know. You did it because it was right. That evening, as the sunset turned Harold's garden to gold, I walked through each room one final time. This chapter was ending, but not the way Christine and Robert had imagined. I laid my hand on the wall Harold and I had painted together decades ago. I did it, I whispered, hoping he could somehow hear. I stood up for both of us. My phone buzzed with a message from Jason. Emma and I are coming to help you pack tomorrow. Love you, Grandma. Despite everything, I smiled. Not all was lost after all. 6 months later, everything looked different. My garden apartment at Cedar Ridge was alive with summer flowers, bright colors spilling over the patio railings where I spent my mornings with coffee and a good book. The place was smaller 2 bedrooms, a cozy living room, but it felt right. It felt mine. When the doorbell chimed, I already knew who it was. Saturday mornings now belonged to Jason and Emma. Grandma, Emma called, rushing in with a bakery box. I brought your favorite lemon scones. At 16, she was more confident now, less afraid to speak her mind. Jason followed with his laptop. And I've got my college applications ready for you to look over. The past 6 months had found a new rhythm. While Christine and Robert kept a polite distance, my bond with the grandchildren had grown stronger than ever. How are your parents? I asked, pouring coffee for Jason and hot chocolate for Emma. They exchanged a glance. They started financial counseling, Jason said carefully. Dad's looking for new work. The market's been slow. I nodded. That's a good start. Mom asked if you got the check, Emma added. I did, I said, smiling. The first repayment toward your college funds came yesterday. It's small, but it's a start. We settled into our Saturday routine. Jason reviewed his applications while Emma spread out photos for a scrapbook project. I found these in Dad's office, she said, laying the pictures across the table. He was cleaning out old files and didn't want them. My breath caught as I looked at the faded images. Christine on her first bike, at her 8th grade graduation, building sandcastles with Harold on the beach. Memories from before, I murmured. Before money and ambition became the things she valued most. Mom was always determined, Emma said. You know, kind of like you. Her words made me pause. I'd never thought of Christine and me as alike. Maybe, I said with a small smile, though I like to think I've learned what's truly worth chasing. By afternoon, Jason had submitted 3 college applications, all to schools within an hour's drive. I want to be close by, he explained, at least for the first year. His thoughtfulness warmed my heart. You know, I'll be fine either way, I told him. Don't limit your choices because of me. He shook his head. It's not just for you, Grandma. It's for me too. After they left, I prepared for my weekly dinner with Martha. Our friendship had only deepened through all the chaos, and her laughter had become part of my new life. "The place looks more like you every time I come over," she said that evening, admiring the light shelves Jason had installed. "Less Harold, more Thelma." I hadn't thought of it that way before, but she was right. The old house had carried so much of Harold, the dark wood furniture, the heavy drapes, the muted tones. Here I'd chosen color, light, space, books, travel photos, and bright fabrics that reflected who I'd become. I poured us each a glass of wine, and for the first time in a long while, I felt completely at peace. Harold's chapter would always be part of my story, but this one, finally, was mine. "I'm finding myself again," I admitted, serving the vegetable lasagna Martha and I had made the week before, pieces of me that got lost somewhere along the way. "Better late than never," Martha said, lifting her glass. "To Thelma 2-0. We laughed, but her toast struck a truth. I was different now, clearer about boundaries, stronger, unafraid to protect what mattered. Then the doorbell rang. Martha raised an eyebrow. "Expecting anyone?" I shook my head and went to answer. On the porch stood Christine, uncertain and hesitant. "Mom," she said softly, "can we talk?" I glanced back at Martha, who was already slipping on her coat. "I'll call you tomorrow," she murmured, giving Christine a brief, assessing nod as she passed. Left alone with my daughter, I gestured toward the living room. "Would you like some coffee? Tea?" She shook her head, perching on the edge of the sofa. "Nice place," she said quietly. "Cozy." "Thank you." Silence stretched between us. Then Christine twisted her wedding ring, gathering courage. "I've been seeing a therapist," she said at last. "Part of the financial counseling turned into something more." That caught me off guard. Christine had always dismissed therapy as unnecessary talk. "That's good," I said carefully. "She thinks I have issues with money and security," Christine admitted with a humorless laugh. "Obviously, but it goes deeper than I realized, back to when Dad lost his job when I was 10. I remembered that hard year, Harold out of work, the bills piling up, the fear we tried to hide from her. I was so scared," she continued. "I used to check the mailbox and hide envelopes that looked like bills, thinking if you didn't see them, maybe we wouldn't have to pay." I felt a lump in my throat. "I never knew that," I said softly, picturing my little girl carrying such a weight. "After Dad got another job, I swore I'd never feel that helpless again," she said, her eyes damp. "I guess that's when money became everything. Safety, worth, identity." I nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "And Robert's the same," she went on. "His parents struggled too. It doesn't excuse what we did, what we said, but I'm trying to understand it, to fix it." We sat in silence, the years of unspoken hurt stretching between us. "I miss Dad," she whispered. "And I miss you." "I'm right here," I said gently. "No, I mean us, before all this." I thought for a long moment. "We can't go back, Christine. Too much has happened." Her shoulders slumped until I added, "But maybe we can build something new." "I'd like that," she said quietly. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. After she left, I sat on the patio beneath a sky full of early summer stars. The evening had brought something I didn't expect, an olive branch. A small one, fragile, but real. My phone buzzed. Jason's message glowed on the screen. "Mom said she talked to you. You okay?" I smiled. "I'm fine," I typed back. It was a good start. Life would never be simple with Christine and Robert. The trust would stay in place. Some lessons take years to sink in, but maybe, just maybe, healing was possible. 2 weeks later, I boarded a plane for the first time in 15 years. Destination: a tour of the national parks Harold and I had always promised ourselves we'd see someday. Martha sat beside me, grinning like a schoolgirl. "Nervous?" she asked as the engines roared to life. "Not about flying," I said, watching the world fall away beneath us. "About living, at 72, with a family in repair and a future entirely my own." For the first time in years, I felt something unexpected, possibility. Harold would have approved, not of the conflicts, but of my refusal to shrink beneath them. He always said I was stronger than I knew. He was right. As the plane climbed higher, clouds glowing in the sunset, I realized what I'd truly gained. I had protected what mattered. And in doing so, I found the inheritance worth more than any fortune: dignity, self-respect, and the courage to say, enough. That was the legacy I wanted Jason and Emma to remember. And someday, maybe even Christine would understand its value. For now, though, the journey was mine. The road ahead was wide open, the possibilities endless. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was genuinely excited to see what came next.